Shimikud Kudushabihu Ushihinte Bi Ilu Ar Imalaye Shimiki Loke Hidu Shamasham Kutuya Kolon. And good evening, and may peace be with you. The prayer is about merging the heavens and the earth, heart and the mind. And tonight, we'll be talking about the mystery of the mind. The mind is really interesting because it could be our best friend or it could be our worst enemy. How is it our best friend? Well, like our physical body, we're given a mental body that is for us to work well in the world, to manage ourselves in the world, to create a situation in the world where we can support going beyond the mind. It's our worst enemy because it keeps us in the world, buzzing around. The question is, how do we use the mind to go beyond the mind? In the yogic teachings, we say yoga chirti virti nirodha. Yoga is stilling the activities of the mind. And that really isn't my teaching. The first part of yoga is stilling the activities of the mind. But we're still in the mind. And I mind that. Okay? What I mean by that is where it goes with this approach is beyond the mind. And so the first step in the deeper process, and we'll call it the samadhi process, and beyond the samadhi process, is transcending the mind. So if our focus is a quiet mind, okay, that's fine. But at the level of liberation, going beyond the contents, go beyond the empty mind, is what is necessary. Because ultimately, it's not a quiet mind, but it's an obliterated mind, where there's no mind left. And that's the mystery of the mind, is to move into no mind. Not an empty mind, but no mind. So the process of this is somewhat spontaneous. And generally speaking, getting into beyond the mind, it happens somewhat spontaneously over long periods of meditation. Now, of course, anything can happen for anybody at any time, so we don't want to put any limitations on it. But generally speaking, going beyond the mind requires meditating enough so that we spontaneously go beyond the mind, that the pathway opens up. And so as we go deeper into this process, we still have an eye that's observing the mind. And we have different levels of what people call samadhi. We have sankalpa samadhi, merging into the light, where we're in a sense going beyond the mind, and nirvikalpa samadhi, going into the void, the black void. Yet this is not what I'm talking about. I'm really talking about the I amness disappearing in the process, where the I amness is our subtle identification with being here. In the process of the deeper levels of liberation, the I amness also has to disappear. And there's nothing left. So there is more to going beyond the mind. There are layers of going beyond the mind, is what's being said here. We have the I-ness that is beyond the mind, where there's, in a sense, the existence of the I-ness. As we move deeper, that we, or I-ness, disappears, and we move into the nothing, and ultimately prior to the nothing. Because at a nothing, there's still a subtle I-ness, where we're still aware that there's a nothing. And that's beyond the void. There's the I-ness going into the void, but we're in the I-ness is in the void. But then as it disappears, there's this nothing there. And finally, the I-ness disappears. And we are prior to existence. The original situation of the universe, prior to existence, before time, space, and energy. And so when we talk about deeper levels of meditation, this is what this one's talking about, is the I amness disappears, and in yogic terms we could say there's only that. Remember I said, not I am that, but there's only that. Prior to that is I am that. Where the I-ness is identified as pure consciousness. Still in time and space. And so at this deeper level, the I-ness disappears and there's only that. How do you know that that's happened? There's another planet, okay? We know that that has happened because there's no us. And then there's a return where the I amness reappears, and there's the I am that. And then we then move into ultimately time and space and energy awareness. What's amazing is that's all going on within inside of us. And it's the deeper truth of who we are and who we've always been. That's the real power of meditation. At the superficial level, we can say, okay, meditation is for relaxing, it's good for lowering your blood pressure, okay, and it's good for getting a deeper understanding of what life is about. But at the level I'm talking about, this is the deeper reality. And knowing that deeper reality is a part of the key to the enlightenment process, to the more cosmic enlightenment process. This is not about self-realization, because there's still a self there, and that's the first stages of liberation. There's still an I amness there, is what's being said here, but it's not identified with anything. We're identified with I amness. The level that this one is talking about is where the I amness disappears, as I already said, and there's only that. It's another level of the realization process. That's the real powerful thing, and that's the reality. That is the truth of who we aren't. When we begin to experience it on a regular basis, that's closer to bringing us to the awareness of liberation. But the focus isn't about liberation here. The focus is, as I'm talking, is because that happens naturally. It's nothing you want to even think about or worry about. It doesn't matter. There are no worries at this level anyway. It's just going into that awareness repeatedly so that you understand that you don't exist. And you never existed. And nothing ever happened. And nothing's ever going to happen. Because we're beyond time and space. For something to happen, you have to have time and space. At this place, nothing's happening. Nothing ever happened, and nothing's ever going to happen. There's only that. When we understand that as a direct apperception, our whole experience disappears, actually. There's no experience. But our whole understanding, the more we tap into it, takes us beyond the illusion of this world and truly that there's even any world. The level that's what it's talking about. It's not like there's higher worlds. Yes, there are. As we go beyond, you pass through the higher worlds, but what's being said here is there at the level that this one was talking about, there is no world, there is no universes, there is no levels of heaven. All that does exist, but the true reality is beyond that. And I bless everyone that we are able to access the non-we and live in the that. Now, the second part of that is, well, then what do you do with that when you come back into your body? What begins to happen is that thatness, that emptiness, the bitul ha-esh, the complete emptiness, stays with you. In the midst of all the activities. It's amazing. And that there's a full emptiness inside. And that's how it goes on. So what this one was just talking about is really about sitting meditation. And as we come back into the physical body, as it starts to really hold place for us, thatness is there all the time. But in a place, in a way that we can be in the world. And in the thatness. And for everybody, it's a slightly different way of expressing. According to what one's dharma is. So I'm going to leave it at that because that gets into another level of discussion. But to understand that if it's really happening, it's happening within you and it's with you all the time. It becomes, the awareness becomes an essential part of your being, and it's an experiential awareness. And with that, third level is what I talk about as the multidimensional beingness, because we go from that, where we don't exist, there's no I amness at all, to an I amness that's walking between the worlds, and then finally to that I amness that's here on the physical plane, that walking around performing whatever dharma needs to be performed, and but maintaining that deep primordial thatness and emptiness. And so may everybody be blessed with the second part of this, which is being able to live in the world in that way. Yogic terms that come close to it are what we call sahaja samadhi. Okay, and it's the walking awareness of it. But, or not and that's what we're talking about. In other words, This one is not the first one to be talking about it, is what I'm trying to say. It's been around. People are aware of these different levels. So, with that understanding, may we be blessed that we are able to awaken to this understanding. It's inherently who we are. And as we meditate and meditate, it begins to unfold for us. You've all heard me talking about the 6 foundations, and there are ways to support it with the life food diet. Of course, you can't eat your way to God, but the service and the charity and working with the spiritual teacher and developing the qualities that we talk about in the yogic way, viveka, vairagya, mokshupa, samadhi, shakti, sampati. Those are the qualities which I have talked about before. And ultimately, it becomes who we are. So may this be a seed planted for you to take you to the deepest awareness. Om Shanti, 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 Shalom, 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 Om Takyasa. Okay, are there any questions anybody has? Yes.
Is it healthy or unhealthy to view this expression as a tyranny of the mind, or is that simply an inept description?
I'm not sure what you're referring to as the tyranny of the mind. The tyranny of mind is when your mind is out of control and it's controlling you. Okay, that's how most people are living. That's what we see on the streets and people. Okay, the next step is part of the refinement, which is very explicitly just talked about more in the yogic, but really in the Torah way too, is where you are in control of your mind. Okay, but you're still in the mind, but it's just that the ego isn't running wild when you're in control.
So tyranny is a relative experience for an individual.
Of the immature mind. And then, as the mind matures, one has more and more control over it. Now we're not talking, and that does happen with meditation, but then we're talking going beyond the mind. So it's like at least 3 levels. Any other questions?
On this particular path, dealing with these deaths, these little eye deaths, that's my experience of it, is I'm dying when this is happening, when I'm meditating. I did a long fast. I would all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, say, I feel like I'm dying. I knew I wasn't dying, but I knew something was dying.
The ego is dying. You are not dying.
Exactly.
You're becoming alive, but your identification with the ego. Well, you still have the ego. Otherwise, you couldn't be here. Okay, you couldn't be sitting, couldn't be standing. Your identification with it is what's dying.
So how do we? So what's the?
It happens more naturally. Is what I'm saying.
The dying, the little mini eye deaths.
Yeah.
It comes naturally.
Right. People work and worry about it and so forth, and what actually draws you into it, it really happens naturally. The more you experience the truth of who you are or who you aren't, then those attachments to the local ego, they don't have any power. They're not reality. They're not your new reality. So it's very experiential. It's not really intellectual. I'm not saying there aren't ways like with Jnana Yoga, Yoga of the Mind, to work at it that way, but what's being said here is something different, is it just naturally fades away because it just isn't the truth. And you recognize it as illusion. But not philosophically. But having heard those words, it's easier to say, oh yeah, it's a world of illusion. It actually is illusion in your experience. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Any other questions? Yes.
From out there.
Yes.
How does the scientific method fit into all of this?
The science of meditation, just like a social science or psychological science, this is the science of meditation. Can you document it? Yes. But if we call it the science of meditation, this one just laid out the science of meditation. We have to you have to face the mind, activities of the mind, going beyond the mind. So there's steps of the process. And they as you experience it, this is direct experiential science, then which all science has to be. That's how it fits into the science. And at the same time, the question is a good question, but when we go into the mystical, it's only mystical because we don't have, quote, a scientific understanding. But the truth is, as it's unfolding with the current science, there's more and more scientific understanding of what used to be mystical. The mystical is only mystical because we don't have the science to validate it, but it's rapidly moving in that direction. There are people doing research on meditation and its effects on the brain and so forth. Any other questions?
How do we create research that includes spirit?
All research includes spirit. This is something that the quantum physicists have actually discovered, that our spirit interacts and acts on everything we're doing, even when they're working with subatomic particles. So it's automatically included. The key is being aware of it. And that's what the quantum physicists have really begun to write about. And it's not that new. They've been writing about it for a while. So it's already there.
So that experience of going beyond the mind, would you call that also experience of God? In a pure sense?
In it is the deeper experience of God, where you disappear and there's only God. There's only that.
And would you say...
But you can have experience at different levels at that point, but the kind of thatness is like, you can't really go any farther.
Is that a blissful state, or would you say bliss is more experience of the senses?
It's more experience of the senses. This is way beyond the senses. This is a good question, subtle question. Okay, any other questions? Yes?
How do you know that you've gone beyond your mind if there was nothing to experience and no memory to be made?
As you come out of the obliteration, and that was my point, you know you've been there because you're coming out of it. And that's how you know. You disappear, everything's gone, there's a glimpse of that before you're totally merged into that. And on the way out, you understand the entry and exit. Any other questions? Yes.
Please speak about when the physical body ceases.
Are you talking about, is the person talking about death? Or is he just talking about the awareness when the body disappears?
I think death.
Well,
He's talking about death.
so that's nowhere near what we're talking about. So what we're talking about at death is you move off into the subtle body and more in the astral plane. And what we're talking about here is way beyond that. So death is really a subtle plane experience, astral plane experience. Más preguntas? Okay. Okay. Again, peace be with you. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om Takyasa. Amen.